Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here at Triumphal Reads, and in this video, if you couldn't tell by the title, is going to be my TBR for the Book Junkie Trials Readathon. If you guys haven't heard about this Readathon, it's just a really cool adventure fantasy kind of themed readathon. It takes place, in a different land and everything. It's being hosted by Rachel Marie, Book Junkie. She put a lot of effort into it. It looks really cool. Just seems like it's gonna be a lot of fun. There's a couple different paths. There's some different teams. I'm on Team Outlaw, which is why I have my bow here, like awkwardly. The stick is awkwardly just sitting here in the library. I know I didn't string it. I just didn't bring the string with me, and I was too lazy to like go get it once I noticed it. If I can get to like stand back up, probably not. Yeah, they don't really stand up very good, kind of like, well, just kind of in general. We'll leave it like that. Anyways, so yeah, I'm on Team Outlaw, and each of the 4 teams has a different starting path, but after the each team path, then you can join other people's paths to complete different challenges and everything. And I'm, as much hubris as I have, I'm going to try for becoming a quest champion, which is to read a book for all 17 prompts, which is definitely not going to happen. I think I'm averaging like 8 or 9 books a month. So, but I did pick some shorter work, so I'm hoping I can at least bump that average up a tiny bit with this readathon. I don't know how else you're going to read 17 books unless you got the page count down a little bit on some of them. But like I said, it just sounds like a really cool readathon. I'm going to leave her announcement video down below. Definitely go check it out if you haven't heard about it already, or if you haven't looked into it, things like that. It's just a really cool idea. And so yeah, let's just get started, because if I'm talking about 17 books in one video, if I don't just like limit myself, this video is going to end up being like an hour plus long. So I'm going to start with the first 5 that I need to complete for the Outlaw path. And the first one is Crimson Peaks, which is to reread a favorite. And I'm going with The Historian's Craft by Mark Bloch. This was a book given to me by my academic advisor. I went to like college for history and philosophy and stuff, but she gave me this book. It's just a really, just a really awesome kind of like philosophy of history kind of work. Mark Bloch, when he wrote this, was actually in a World War II. He was being held by the Nazis in prison when he wrote this book, before he was executed as part of like the French resistance and stuff. Just really good on sort of just what history's all about, and it's really just, he did a great job. It's really witty, obviously like really sad, poignant story. He also wrote Feudal Society, which is like kind of a seminal work in the study of medieval history. So that's rereading a favorite book right there. Second place I have to go to is the Queendom Stone, and that is to read a book featuring royalty. And I'm actually going to go way back when, and I'm going to actually try and read Fantasia by George MacDonald. And this is like one of the first, George MacDonald is like one of the first fantasy writers ever, like in the mid 1800s. I'm not actually even sure exactly when this one was published, but I mean, it's 1858. So yeah, this is like one of the first fantasy like actual novels, like before it was really like a thing. So I think it's gonna be really interesting looking into it. All I know is that some sort of like time traveler or some guy like somehow goes into like another world and has to like assist like the fairy queen in something or other. So I figured that definitely featured royalty, seeing as there's a queen involved. But that is literally pretty much all I know. So yeah, but there's some early fantasy right there. Alright, next up is Forgotten Force, is to read the next book in a series, which I'm notoriously really bad at. I think since I started this channel, I think I probably started 25-ish series. I think I finished 3, I think, trilogies or series. But we're going to go with The Guns of Empire by Django Wexler. This is the 4th book in the Shadow Campaigns series. I really enjoy it. It's like really early Flintlock fantasy, when they're still using black powder and muskets and stuff. I just think it's a really good time. And the different main characters are all really cool. We got Winter Earnglass, who is a female soldier who is like rising through the ranks and stuff, but she disguises herself as a male. Obviously, because like in this universe, women are not allowed in the military and stuff. So she's like undercover as a disguise. And you got like 2 other points of view. I just think it's a really good time. I know I just said that, didn't I? Yeah, I did. I'm pretty sure I said that like twice in like 1 minute now. But I really enjoy it, and I think this cover is like really cool with like kind of like the white like gray mist and stuff like going around everything. I think it looks pretty swag. All right, next up is Weeping Falls, and that is to read a tearjerker, and I'm going kind of differently with this one. I'm trying to fit in some nonfiction here into this readathon. I'm going with Silent Night by Stanley Weintraub, the story of the World War I Christmas truce. And Christmas Day 1914, even though World War I was still raging, and actually the Western Front had just started to kind of take its like, you know, like real form, I guess, with like the trench warfare and stuff. During Christmas of 1914, carols were sung across the trenches where both the Germans and the British would basically sing to each other, and they would like light Christmas trees. Eventually they went out and exchanged gifts and stuff, and there might have even been some soccer being played and everything. I just think it's like a really poignant, just like ray of light in the midst of like the Great War. Just considering we're dealing with like actual, you know, just actual individuals, you know, with, you know, just real ordinary lives and kind of how they felt. And, you know, most of them did not understand like what was going on, and probably even after the war, most of them, I mean, no, like there's not a lot of purpose to it for the men on the ground, in the trenches and stuff. And it's just a way to show, I guess, like the humanity in the Great War. So that's why I'm going with that one. All right, next up would be the Bookie Grail, which is the 5th and final one for your original team challenge. And it's to read either Stardust by Neil Gaiman, which I would do, but I just read that in April or May, so I thought it'd be kind of silly to reread it quite that fast. The other prompt is to read a book where you search for something lost. I'm going with The Lost City of Z, A Tale of Deadly Obsession in the Amazon by David Graham. And this is like a story where the author kind of does like a journalistic investigation of a lost expedition in the Amazon, I think in the early 1900s. It just sounds like one of those cool kind of nature explorer adventure reads that I highly enjoy, which is why I picked that one up, and I think that one will fit the prompt quite well. Alright, so after I do that, then I can try to like just traverse the land and kind of do my own thing and, you know, become a quest champion by reading another 12 books on top of those ones. But, you know, we'll see how well that one goes. The next one is Dwarf Mount, which is to read a book with a hint of romance. I'm going with Candle in the Wind, which is the 4th and final book in the Once and Future King by T.H. White. The reason that one has romance is there's obviously the secret, hidden, kind of deceitful romance between Lancelot and Guinevere that King Arthur kind of pretty much knows about this whole time. And it's just like this really awkward sort of just situation that's going on. So I thought that would be kind of an interesting way to take on like the romance theme where, you know, you have all this kind of going on behind the scenes, even though Arthur like knows about it, and it like troubles him. And obviously I'm pretty sure Arthur dies by the end of the book and everything, so it's gonna be kind of a just kind of sad, I don't know, sad read kind of just to go around, though the romance element definitely will be there, especially since how much it was actually in Illuminate, which is the 3rd book in the series. Alright, next up is Apothecary Tower, read a random book. What I did was I wanted to read some NetGalley books this month. So what I did was I took all the books in NetGalley, about, I can't remember, it was 14 or 15 books that I hadn't finished yet, and just did like a random number generator thing. And the one that popped up for a random book here is Classic Krakauer, which is kind of interesting because everyone kept recommending me Krakauer. So when I saw it on NetGalley, I was like, oh, I'll just like see what it's all about. And what this one is I think all his like most famous articles and editorials and stuff that he used to serialize in magazines such as Outside Magazine and Smithsonian and stuff. I think these are just like the ones that either like his most favorite ones or ones that were most popular with his readership and stuff. Just kind of like on like journalism and adventure and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to be about, but that's my random book. Alright, up next is The Great Library, which is treated Forever TBR. Grimdark was probably like right when I first started reading fantasy, or wanting to read fantasy and everything. I thought Grimdark, I knew I was going to gravitate towards it. So what I did was I came up with some of the bigger names, such as like Joe Abercrombie and Glenn Cook. And Mark Lawrence kept coming up too. Except I've never read anything by Mark Lawrence. I have Emperor of Thorns, but I'm probably going to either listen to the audiobook or pick up the first book in this series, Prince of Thorns, which I think was one of his first fantasy works, just because he's such a big name in Grimdark. And like I said, like when I had my first like Excel spreadsheet of, you know, fantasy books to get and stuff, he's like right up there in the first like a couple of authors. So yeah, that's definitely an author I've wanted to try for like forever and ever and ever, and just never gotten around to it. So that's why we're going with Prince of Thorns. Alright, then we're going to go to the Drowning Deep, which is to read a book with rich world building. And I'm going with The Fall of Gondolin, which is the newest release by the Tolkien estate or something. Obviously by like Christopher Tolkien's like the editor, and J.R.R. Tolkien kind of the author, you know, from his notes and everything. I don't really know much about this one, except it's like when Morgoth wants to destroy like the city of Gondolin by the Noldor and elves and stuff. Don't really know much about it, but Middle Earth is just great world building, I think, so that's why I'm going with The Fall of Gondolin. Alright, then we go to Orkgrove, which is read something gruesome, gritty, or gory. And I'm going with the fourth book in, actually, I already got it. I don't know why I have that one. It just came in the mail. I got Glenn Cook's Shadow Games, which is the fourth book in the Chronicles of the Black Company, which is just definitely uber gritty, grimdark. Everything is just morally gray. The whole weak universe is just morally gray. Yeah, just everything's just super bleak. Yep, pretty much the definition of grimdark, and that's why I'm going with Shadow Games. Okay, so after Orkgrove, it's Old Pirate Cove, and it's to read a book with a sea setting. And I just got this one in the mail from the publisher, and it's Nightmare Arcanist by Shami Stovall. Don't know too much about it, except they sold it to me that it's essentially some sort of like pirate flintlock fantasy with some magic and stuff. And I'm like, you know, flintlock fantasy is kind of like my favorite genre, so you know, I shouldn't pass that up. And since it has to deal with like pirates and stuff, I just assume quite a bit of it will take place on like ships in the sea and stuff, so that should fit pretty well. Then after Old Pirate Cove is Glimmer, and that is to read a beautiful book. I'm going with the Final Fantasy Ultimania Archive Compendium, and this deals with Final Fantasy 1 through 6. I also have Volume 2, which is 7 through 9, but this is just like this giant companion book to everything Final Fantasy. Just really cool. I love Final Fantasy, as you guys can probably tell by half my shirts and stuff. I just thought this one fit that category really well. Tons of artwork, tons of like everything, storylines, just like editors' notes and illustrators' notes and story people writing their like little vignettes and stuff and everything. I just think it's really awesome, and that's what I'm going with. Final Fantasy Ultimania Archive for a beautiful book. Then it's Draconic Isle, which is a book featuring dragons, and as weird as that sounds, pretty much I have my entire fantasy library, even though it's only like 3 or 4 shelves. I don't really have any books that feature dragons, like hardly at all, let alone like featuring them. Like there might be a couple that like barely mention them and stuff, so I was not sure what to do about it. So I'm thinking I might listen to the audiobook, City of Dragons by Robin Hobb. I definitely want to start reading more of Robin Hobb's works. I've only read the first book in the Farseer trilogy, and I thought it was better than average, but not like as spectacular as everyone like made it out to be. So I'm thinking maybe I should start rereading like some of her works and just kind of go from there. So there is City of Dragons. Alright, the next place is Elven Guard, which is to read a book featuring war, military, or political themes. And I thought, you know, to go with my longbow here, I thought I would read English Longbowmen 1330 to 1515, written by Clive Bartlett and illustrated by Gary Embleton. And what this book does is, from 1330 to 1515, just pretty much explains every single thing there is to know about the English Longbowmen. Lots of illustrated plates that are highly accurate to the time period involved, manuscript things, some photographs of archaeological things, all kinds of stuff. So pretty much anything we want to know, I want to know about an English longbowman in, you know, the 14th through 16th centuries. It's probably going to be in this book, so that's why I'm going with English longbowman. Alright, we're almost done. Alright, up next it's Hallo, which is to read an atmospheric or horror book. I don't really have too much horror books. However, I was thinking I read like Warhammer and the Horus Heresy and stuff, and I got on NetGalley the book Conrad Kerr's The Night Haunter. Conrad Kerr's is one of the Primarchs of one of the Legiones Astartes, and they're pretty much like the psychopaths of the legions. Where Conrad Kurz grew up on a planet where essentially the whole planet is just like a giant, almost like prison type thing, where everyone's just like cutthroating, is that like a verb? Everyone is just like a cutthroat and like murders everyone. It's just the most insane thing ever. And his like epithet obviously is the Night Haunter. So we're gonna be dealing a lot with like, just like really shadowy, sketchy things. So I thought that'd be a pretty good atmospheric book for something that I have in my library. Alright, next up is The Empty Barrel Inn, which is to read an indulgent read, and kind of to go along with the same thing with Warhammer. Warhammer, Horus Heresy stuff is like my guilty pleasure go-to thing. It's the only sci-fi-ish type stuff I read. But I'm going to go with the first book in the Siege of Terra, which is like, it's the ending sub-series of the prequel series or something like that. It's gonna be an 8-book like story arc, and the first one is The Solar War by John French, and also Conrad Kurz is by Guy Haley, if you guys want to know. But anyways, this is the first book in, like I said, this ending, the beginning of the end essentially, or the end of the begin. Yeah. Anyways, it's the first book out of the Solar War and the 55th book out of the Horus Heresy. But like I said, it's kind of just like an indulgent read for me, because you can read them out of order, but like I said, it's the only sci-fi I read, and I mean, they're not always the greatest written stories, but they all have like really good themes kind of going on throughout them, and I just I enjoy reading them. So that's why I'm going to go with the Solar War as my indulgent read. Yes. Alright, two left. Giant Squid is the next one. It's to read an intimidating book. And for an intimidating book, I'm going with The Claw of the Conciliator, which is the second part of the Shadow and Claw series by Gene Wolfe. Gene Wolfe sometimes is like so far over my head, it's not even funny. He's got so much symbolism, so many allegories and like parables and stuff going on. I don't always know what's going on, but he's like a master wordsmith. So it's like really enjoyable and fun to read. But like I said, sometimes I'm not exactly sure what I'm reading, what it's actually supposed to mean, like beneath the surface. So that's why I'm going with Gene Wolfe's Claw of the Conciliator, the second book in the Books of the New Sun, as my intimidating read. So actually, that is all the books. I lied, because I wrote down Lost City of Z, like the Bookie Grail book, as my last one. So actually, that is the end. So those are the 17 books that I want to try and read in this readathon. I know it's going to be insane. It's probably not going to be happening. Let me just tell you about the 2 outlaw, the pros and cons of being an outlaw. Every out of the 4 factions, there's outlaw, magi, scribes, and bards. Each one has kind of a bonus, and then everyone also has like a detriment. First, our detriment is that we have to do a 24-hour readathon at some point during the month of July, which I've never done before, so that's going to be interesting, I guess. However, my benefit is that I can steal someone else's book from their TBR and put it anywhere on my journey, even if it doesn't really fit the prompt. So that'll definitely come in helpful, so I can try and find someone that has like a really short work and just like replace one of mine. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Tell me what you guys think about any of these books down below, and tell me what your favorite book, that if you're participating in this readathon, what your favorite book is going to be. And if you have a video, a TBR video for this readathon, leave a link down below so I can definitely go check it out. But yeah, even if you are participating, if you're not participating, always remember, whatever you're reading in July, read victoriously.